Greetings. We are beginning the cycle, Mechanics of Self-Control. True power is not the absence of feelings nor a heroic attempt to suppress them. That is a primitive and ineffective strategy that leads to cognitive exhaustion. Real power lies in the ability to occupy the position of an external observer in relation to your own biochemical processes. When you understand how adrenaline and cortisol are attempting to seize control of your neocortex, you cease to be a slave to reactions. You become the architect of the situation. Generals who win without a battle do not possess magic. They possess a discipline of mind that allows them to see the structure of conflict, where others see only a chaos of emotions. We shall deconstruct this process, module by module. If you have recognized your own reactions or past behavioral models in these examples, please leave a plus in the comments. This does not indicate weakness. On the contrary, it is a signal that the process of changing your mindset has begun. Module 1. Impulse Isolation. He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty. Lao Tzu. 1. Stage. The scenario. The observation. A spacious living room of a country house. The family is gathered. Marcus sits in an armchair, leaning back slightly. His hands rest on the armrests. His fingers are relaxed. Opposite him is Julian, his younger brother, whose face has acquired a crimson hue. You have always believed that you have the right to dispose of our father's share as if it were your own. Julian's voice cracks into a falsetto. He takes a sharp step forward, violating Marcus's personal space. Marcus notes to himself, the distance has decreased to 40 centimeters, an attempt at dominance through physical pressure. He sees Julian's left eyelid twitching, a sign of limbic system overload. Do you hear me? Julian strikes the coffee table with his palm. The cups clink. Answer me. Marcus maintains a pause for 3 seconds. He does not look away, yet he does not narrow his pupils in reciprocal aggression. His breathing remains steady. Inhalation for 4 counts. Exhalation for 6. Julian. Marcus's voice sounds quiet at the lower end of the register. Your intonation is currently obstructing the perception of the meaning of your words, shifting the focus from the content of the conflict to its form. Do not dare lecture me. Julian swings his arm as if he is about to push Marcus. Marcus does not flinch. He only tilts his head slightly, fixing the trajectory of his brother's hand movement. His pulse is 72 beats per minute. He does not see an enemy, but a person who has lost control over his prefrontal functions. Quote 10, Marcus says calmly. Quote 11. Objectification of the opponent's state. 2. Stage. Psychological scan. System analysis. In this scene, we observe a classic example of limbic hijack. Julian is in a state of affect where the amygdala has completely suppressed the functioning of the logical centers of the brain. His reaction, fight or flight, is ineffective in a social context but biologically justified. Marcus, however, utilizes the technique of cognitive reappraisal. Instead of perceiving his brother's shouting as a personal insult or a threat, he classifies it as a quote _15 _. This allows him to avoid emotional contagion. His composure is conditioned by the activation of the vagus nerve through controlled breathing. When you consciously slow down your exhalation, you suppress the sympathetic nervous system. The brain receives a signal, __, quote _16, __. Thus, Marcus maintains cognitive flexibility, the ability to choose a reaction rather than follow an instinct. 3. Stage, __, quote _17, __. This behavior correlates with the research of Paul Ekman in the field of microexpressions and emotional regulation. Ekman proved that there is a, quote, 18 a duration during which our thoughts are completely subordinated to the arisen emotion. In this state, we are unable to perceive information that contradicts our current feeling. Marcus is aware of this phenomenon. By waiting for 5 minutes, he allows time for Julian's quote 19 to conclude. There is also a connection here to the experiments of neurobiologist Richard Davidson regarding neural pathways of resilience. People with high activity in the left prefrontal cortex are able to recover faster after negative stimuli. Marcus has trained this area by intentionally entering controlled stressful situations and maintaining the state of an quote 20 stage quote 21 the master key. Victory over an enemy without a battle begins with a refusal to recognize his attack as effective. When you remain calm under pressure, you deprive the aggressor of quote 22 His brain expects your reaction, fear or anger, to justify further escalation. The absence of a reaction creates a vacuum that paralyzes the attacker. Control principle number 1, the dissociation method. In the moment of a verbal attack, imagine that you are a scientist observing the behavior of a rare but predictable species. Describe the opponent's actions to yourself in dry terms. Increase in volume, acceleration of gesturing, dilation of skin vessels. This switches the brain from emotional mode to analytical mode. He who analyzes cannot be afraid. 5. Stage, atmosphere of statics. Silence falls upon the room. The second hand of the wall clock moves with a methodical click. Marcus looks at the dust motes dancing in the beam of light breaking through the curtains. The world is orderly. Chaos is merely a temporary fluctuation in the consciousness of another person. It does not touch Marcus. Module 2. Architecture of Scarcity. 1. Stage, the scenario, the observation. A boardroom on the 40th floor of a glass skyscraper. 12 people sit at a dark walnut table. The atmosphere is saturated with electricity, a collective expectation of failure. In the center is Eleanor, the chief executive officer, whose position investors are attempting to undermine. Opposite her is Caleb, an ambitious shareholder who has just finished a 30-minute tirade regarding a 12% drop in share value. Caleb slams the folder shut. The sound is dry and sharp, like a gunshot. We need explanations, Eleanor, and we need them now, or we shall initiate a vote of no confidence. Eleanor does not change her posture. She does not lean forward to justify herself, nor does she move back in a defensive gesture. Her eyelids are slightly lowered, a demonstration of the absence of a threat. She slowly picks up the pen lying before her and moves it 2 centimeters to the right, aligning it with the edge of the notebook. Demonstration of control over microspace. 5 seconds, she says barely audibly. What? Caleb frowns. I gave myself 5 seconds to evaluate the artistic value of your performance, Caleb. The use of irony to lower the opponent's status. Quote 33 She does not open the presentation. She looks Caleb directly in the eyes until he begins to nervously adjust his tie. Victory in a visual duel through an exponential pause. Quote 34 Eleanor's voice sounds monotonous without a single emotional modulation. 2. Stage, quote 35 system analysis. Eleanor utilizes the strategy of information scarcity. In crisis conditions, most people strive to speak much and fast, attempting to fill the void and reduce anxiety. This signals weakness. Eleanor does the opposite. She economizes words and movements. The mechanism of social hierarchy is at work here. In biological communities, the individual with the highest status moves the slowest and reacts the least to sharp sounds or outbursts from subordinates. Her prefrontal cortex suppresses, quote, 36 that urge her to reflect Caleb's anger. Instead, she imposes her own rhythm upon him. This is called cognitive dominance. He who sets the pace of communication owns the situation. Caleb is forced to adjust to her pauses, which subconsciously places him in a subordinate position. 3. Stage. Underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 37, underscore, underscore. This scenario illustrates the phenomenon of the underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 38, underscore, underscore of self-control. Research by social psychologist Robert Cialdini. When a person demonstrates absolute composure at a moment of chaos, those around them subconsciously attribute to them competencies that they may not even possess. Calmness is perceived by the brain as evidence of the existence of a, quote, 39 or superior resources. The Yerkes-Dodson law is also applicable here. To perform complex cognitive tasks, such as strategic negotiations, an optimal level of arousal is necessary. Caleb has passed the point of optimum and fallen into disorganization. Eleanor, however, artificially holds herself in the zone of productive calmness, using metacognition, the ability to think about one's thinking in real time. 4. Stage. Strategic protocol. The master key. A true leader manages not people, but the silence between words. The higher the pressure, the slower your reaction should be. Quickness in response to aggression is the reflex of a victim. Slowness is the privilege of a predator. Control. Principle number 2, the law of delay. When you are asked a sharp, provocative question, consciously make a pause 3 to 4 seconds longer than propriety requires. During this time, look at the bridge of the opponent's nose. Your goal is not to devise an answer, but to make the opponent feel discomfort from their own question. Make their aggression, quote, 41 for them. 5. Stage, quote, 42. The hum of the air conditioner becomes audible in the hall. Eleanor sees Caleb looking away toward the window. The conflict is exhausted before it could begin. Even rows of lamps are reflected on the surface of the polished table. Purity, structure, cold calculation. Module 3, the paradox of compliance. 1. Stage, underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 43, underscore, underscore, the observation. Saturday morning, a modern-style kitchen. The air's filled with the aroma of freshly ground coffee. Julian, the brother of Marcus from the first module, stands by the window, crossing his arms over his chest. His wife, Eleanor, namesake of the head of the corporation, but in a different social role, sits at the table. Between them is an unspoken grievance that has been accumulating for several weeks. Quote 44. Eleanor's voice is saturated with passive aggression. Underscore, underscore. Quote underscore 45. Underscore, underscore Julian takes a sip of coffee. He feels a familiar irritation rising in his chest, a reaction to injustice. His brain generates 3 variants of a response: a justification, a counter-accusation, or a sarcastic remark. 3 standard paths to escalation. He chooses the 4th, the path of radical agreement. Quote, 46, he says, looking at the coffee foam. Quote, 47, Eleanor freezes. She was prepared for an argument. Her neural circuits were already tuned for, quote, 48. Quote, the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance in the absence of expected resistance. Oh, quote, 49, quote, she loses her offensive momentum. Quote, 50, quote, 51. Julian raises a calm gaze to her. Quote, 52. Eleanor blinks. She feels disarmed. The conflict found no support and crumbled. 2. Stage, underscore underscore, quote underscore 53, underscore underscore, system analysis. Julian applied the technique of underscore underscore, quote underscore 54, underscore underscore. Instead of blocking the blow, denying guilt, he used the momentum of the attacker against the attacker themselves. From the perspective of neurobiology, when we expect a conflict, our brain releases dopamine in anticipation of a quote underscore 55 underscore in the argument. The opponent's agreement breaks this cycle, causing a state of information vacuum in the attacker. Eleanor was tuned for an adrenaline release but received emptiness. Julian carried out a depersonalization of the criticism. He did not perceive the words "you again" as an attack on his personality. He translated them into the category of technical tasks, shifting the emphasis from ego to task. This allowed him to maintain control over his serotonin system and not descend to the level of a defending child. 3. Stage: scientific validation. This strategy relies on Leon Festinger's research on cognitive dissonance. When a partner's behavior, calm agreement, sharply contradicts your conviction, he must begin to justify himself. The brain experiences discomfort and strives to restore balance, usually through a reduction in the intensity of emotions. The mechanism of I messages, transformed into a without I strategy, is also visible here. Julian completely removed his ego from the equation. In social psychology, this is called a reduction in reactivity. The less you defend yourself, the less vulnerable you become. Research from the Harvard Negotiation Laboratory confirms, acknowledging the partial correctness of an opponent at the beginning of a dialogue increases the probability of a constructive outcome by 72%. 4. Stage: strategic protocol. The master key. Mighty power is the ability to acknowledge your mistake before it can be used as a weapon against you. By agreeing with the logical part of the grievance, you instantly take away the opponent's energy for an attack. Control principle number 3. The method of absorbing the shadow. If you are accused, find one objective fact in the accusation and agree with it as dryly as possible. Quote 66. Do not add quote 67, and do not justify yourself with traffic jams. Your brevity and lack of justifications demonstrate that you are above this conflict. You are your own judge, and the opinion of another is not capable of shaking your internal structure. 5. Stage: underscore underscore, quote underscore 68, underscore underscore a constructive peace settles in the kitchen. Sunlight falls on the clean surface of the table. Eleanor begins to slowly put away the dishes. Her movements have become smooth, devoid of sharpness. Julian takes a notebook and writes down 2 tasks. Order is restored. Entropy is reduced to a minimum. We continue. The 4th stage is dedicated to the art of managing the collective field. When individual self-control is scaled to a group, it turns into gravity that forces those around you to revolve around your axis. Module 4. Social Gravity 1. Stage: underscore underscore, quote underscore 69, underscore underscore the observation. An evening reception in an art gallery. The noise of hundreds of voices, the clinking of glasses, the chaotic movement of people. An incident is brewing in the center of the hall. Marcus stands surrounded by 5 people, among whom are Marcus Jr., his nephew, and a hot-tempered critic named Simon. Simon, attempting to attract public attention, loudly ridicules Marcus's latest investment in ecological technologies. Quote 70. Simon's exclamation causes neighboring groups to fall silent. Quote 71. Marcus does not turn toward Simon with his whole body. He only tilts his head slightly, maintaining a relaxed posture. Refusal of full frontal orientation is a sign of high status. He does not interrupt. He allows Simon's shout to dissolve in the ensuing silence. 10 seconds of complete wordlessness. Marcus takes a slow sip of mineral water. Demonstration of control over oral reflexes. Simon, Marcus says, addressing not the critic, but the group as a whole. Your need for dramatization exceeds your capacity for financial analysis. That is a curious combination. Shifting the attention from the subject of the dispute to the personal characteristics of the opponent. He does not justify himself. He does not provide figures. He simply classifies Simon as an exhibit in this gallery. Simon opens his mouth to object, but finds that the other guests are no longer looking at him. They are looking at Marcus, awaiting his next micro-movement. Marcus's gravity has swallowed Simon's impulse. 2. Stage. Quote, _76, system analysis. Marcus utilized the mechanism of social proof through imperturbability. In a crowd, people subconsciously seek a, quote, 77. He who reacts the least to external stimuli is automatically perceived as a leader, a bearer of hidden power or information. The contrast effect is at work here. The loud, gesturing Simon looks hyperactive and unbalanced against the static Marcus. The harder Simon tries to wound Marcus, the more pathetic he appears. Because he does not receive the expected quote, 78, biologically, Marcus keeps his serotonin system in dominant mode. Serotonin reduces sensitivity to social threats. When you are not afraid of losing face before the group, your body transmits signals of safety, which the group reads as a, quote, 79.3. Stage, quote, 80. This case illustrates Solomon Asch's research on conformity, but in reverse. Asch showed how a group pressures an individual. However, modern research in social neurobiology, for example the work of John Cacioppo, confirms the existence of quote, 81. In any group, a synchronization of states occurs. If the leader of the group maintains alpha rhythms of the brain, a state of calm wakefulness, the group eventually synchronizes with him rather than with an aggressive outsider. Marcus acts as a, quote, 82. that imposes his rhythm upon the entire room. His calmness is not simply the absence of a reaction. It is the active suppression of another's chaos through his own structure. 4. Stage. Quote, 83. The master key. In a crowd, it is not the one who shouts loudest who wins, but the one who knows how to hold a pause. Your presence should be weighty, not noisy. Control. Principle number 4. The rule of emotional vacuum. If someone attempts to publicly slight you, use the quote, 84. Look at the person as if you are studying a rare insect. Do not answer the question. Comment on the behavior itself. Instead of quote, 85, say, quote, 86, This instantly changes the roles. You are no longer the defendant. You are the observer. And the observer always stands above the observed. 5. Stage. Quote, 87, Marcus smoothly shifts his gaze to a painting on the wall. The group obediently follows his look. The hum of voices returns, but now it is more muffled, more orderly. The air seems transparent. Every movement Marcus makes is calibrated, like a Swiss watch mechanism. In this space, there is no room for accidental bursts. Only clarity, only control. Module 5. Neurobiology of Patience. 1. Stage. Quote, 88, the observation. Late evening in the office of a law firm. 9 hours have passed since the beginning of the negotiations regarding a corporate merger. At the table are Julian and a representative of the competing party. Marcus Sr. The air is heavy and stale. Piles of empty cups and crumpled papers are on the table. Marcus Sr. is intentionally dragging out the process, reviewing the same points of the contract for the 5th time. He is counting on Julian's cognitive exhaustion, a strategy of attrition. We cannot move further until we clarify subpoint B in the 7th section, Marcus Sr. says in a raspy voice, slowly turning the page. Julian feels a throbbing pain beginning in his temples. His body wants to give up, to agree to any conditions just to finish this marathon. The brain's reaction to glucose deficiency and adenosine accumulation. Julian straightens his back. He does not prop his head with his hand. He takes a sip of water, feeling its coolness with every cell of his tongue. The technique of quote, _90, through sensory focus. Quote, 91, Julian says, and his voice sounds as fresh as it did at 9 in the morning. Quote, 92, demonstration of an unlimited time resource. He sees Marcus Sr.'s shoulders drop almost imperceptibly. He who attempted to exhaust another has himself encountered a monolith of patience. 2. Stage. Psychological scan. System analysis. Julian applies metabolic resource management. He knows that willpower is an exhaustible resource of the prefrontal cortex. To prevent decision fatigue, he moves the process into an automatic, analytical mode. Kagdehi says, I have the entire night. He performs a cognitive shift. He removes the deadline that was creating pressure. As soon as the brain ceases to perceive time as an enemy, the cortisol level stabilizes. His calmness is the result of the functioning of the anterior cingulate cortex, which is responsible for monitoring conflicts and distributing attention. Instead of fighting exhaustion, which spends even more energy, he observes it, separating the physical sensation of fatigue from the cognitive ability to make decisions. 3. Stage. Scientific validation. In this situation, the phenomenon of ego depletion, described by social psychologist Roy Baumeister, is manifested. Research has shown that after prolonged self-control, people are inclined to make impulsive and disadvantageous decisions. However, modern works such as the research of Carol Dweck indicate that ego depletion depends largely on a person's beliefs. If you believe that your will is boundless, your brain finds ways to maintain glucose levels in critical zones longer. Julian uses this mindset as mental fuel. He deceives his biology by convincing the neocortex that the game has only just begun. 4. Stage. Quote, _99, the master key. In a prolonged struggle, the winner is the one who knows how to rest during the process itself. Your patience should appear to the opponent as an insurmountable natural force, like erosion that slowly but inevitably destroys stone. Control principle number 5, the infinite resource protocol. If they are attempting to take you by attrition, stop waiting for the end of the meeting. Internally accept the decision that you will remain here for a week if necessary. As soon as you sincerely accept this scenario, your body will relax, and your gaze will become heavy and calm. An opponent who is in a hurry or nervous will inevitably commit an error, attempting to quote, _100, your imperturbability. Your time is expensive, but your patience is priceless. 5. Stage. Quote, _101, The lamp on the table casts a sharp circle of light. Outside this circle is the darkness and silence of a sleeping city. Sterile order reigns in the office. Every letter in the contract seems crystal clear to Julian. He is not fighting sleep. He has become the night itself, quiet, infinite, and inevitable. Module 6. Mechanics of Hidden Influence. 1. Stage. Quote, _1, 02 __ the observation. A private club. Dim light, leather armchairs, the smell of expensive tobacco. Caleb, the ambitious shareholder from the second module, sits opposite Julian. Caleb is attempting to test the waters before an important vote using the technique of quote 103. Quote 104 quote. Caleb leans forward, lowering his voice to a confidential whisper. Quote _105. An attempt to involve him in a conspiracy through emotional complicity. Julian remains silent. He does not nod, does not shake his head, and does not change his facial expression. He turns into a quote 106, the technique of mirror neutrality. 10 seconds pass. Caleb begins to feel discomfort from the lack of feedback. His brain feverishly seeks an interpretation of Julian's silence. Quote 107. Quote 108. Caleb begins to speak faster, giving away more information than he intended. Quote 109. An attempt to fill the silence with justifications. Julian slightly raises an eyebrow. Only one. Quote 110. Returning the projection to the opponent without confirmation or denial. Caleb loses his rhythm. His confidence in his own correctness begins to shatter against the impenetrable surface of Julian's calmness. 2. Stage. Quote 111. System analysis. Julian utilized the strategy of quote 112 . When a person encounters an absence of emotional reaction, the so-called quote 113 . Their psyche strives to fill this vacuum. In psychology, this is called projection. Caleb sees in Julian's silence his own fears and begins to struggle with them aloud. The brain's reward system is involved here. In social interaction, we expect quote 114 . A nod, a smile. The absence of this stimulus is perceived by the brain as a prediction error. To correct this error, Caleb increases the intensity of communication, revealing his true intentions and fears. Julian maintains cognitive sovereignty. He does not allow mirror neurons to synchronize with Caleb's restless state. His brain operates in high-frequency scanning mode, recording micro-slips and changes in the opponent's tone of voice, while the opponent disorganizes himself. 3. Stage. Scientific validation. This method is closely related to the research of Carl Rogers and techniques of psychoanalysis, where the neutrality of the therapist forces the patient to project their internal conflicts onto the figure of the doctor. The law of information asymmetry also manifests here. Research in the field of behavioral economics, for example the work of Daniel Kahneman, shows that under conditions of uncertainty, people are inclined to overestimate risks. Julian's silence creates a zone of absolute uncertainty for Caleb. As a result, Caleb spends a colossal amount of mental energy on modeling Julian's thoughts, while Julian simply observes this process from the side. 4. Stage. Strategic protocol. The master key. Your silence is a mirror in which the enemy sees his weaknesses. The less you reveal about yourself, the more power you have over the one who is attempting to manipulate you. Control principle number 6. The empty mirror technique. In response to a provocative question or an attempt at closeness, do not give any evaluation. Use detonator phrases. That is an interesting point of view. Why did you decide to say that exactly now? Or simply remain silent, looking into the eyes. Your task is to make the opponent speak. He who speaks spends resources and reveals his cards. He who listens in a state of absolute calmness controls the directions of the game. 5. Stage. Atmosphere of statics. The smoke from Caleb's cigar rises slowly in a straight thread. Julian observes this movement, feeling the absolute transparency of the moment. The club is still noisy, but a cocoon of silence has formed at their table. Caleb fusses within this cocoon, while Julian is motionless. He is the center of gravity, unshakable and unreachable. Module 7. Total Integration 1. Stage. The scenario. The observation. The culmination. A conference hall of international arbitration. The final stage of dividing a major holding. Marcus sits at the head of the table. Opposing him is a coalition of 4 former partners led by Caleb. The atmosphere is heated to the limit. Legal advisors whisper, folders with documents pile up like fortress walls. Caleb delivers the final blow. He presents fabricated or skillfully distorted evidence of a personal error by Marcos, which could cost him his reputation. This is the end, Marcus. Sign the waiver, and we shall not give this further course. Caleb throws a sheet of paper into the middle of the table. Maximum stake, psychological all-in. Marcus does not even look at the paper. He looks at Caleb. In his eyes there is neither anger, nor fear, nor even curiosity. Only a deep, almost sympathetic understanding. The highest form of detachment. He slowly shifts his gaze to each of those present. Time seems to thicken. Marcus notices how one of the partners looks away, and how another's hand, gripping a pen, trembles, fixing the weak links of the coalition. Quote 1, 2, 3, Marcus says. His voice is not simply calm, it possesses the weight of a granite monolith. Quote 1, 2, 4. He stands up, slowly, smoothly, without leaning on the table. Underscore, underscore. Quote underscore 125. Underscore, underscore. Full acceptance of the worst-case scenario destroys the lever of pressure. Marcus leaves the hall without looking back. Behind him, a silence falls that forebodes the collapse of his opponents. 2. Stage. Underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 126, underscore, underscore, system analysis. Marcus demonstrated paradoxical fearlessness. In psychology, this state is called underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 127, underscore, underscore. When you are sincerely ready to lose everything, you become invulnerable to blackmail and pressure. Marcus's amygdala is silent because his neocortex has already calculated and accepted all risks. Holistic self-regulation is at work here. Marcus combined the quote 128 from the first module with the quote 129 of the fourth. His departure is not a flight, but the highest form of dominance. He left the opponents alone with their own fear of the consequences of their own actions. His brain is in a state of high coherence. Heart rate and brain waves are synchronized. This allows him to maintain peripheral vision, seeing the reactions of all partners, with a narrow focus on the main goal. He is not, quote, 130, the role of a calm person. He is calmness. 3. Stage. Underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 131. Underscore, underscore. This triumph of will is illustrated by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on the state of underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 132, underscore, underscore applied to critical situations. Marcus is in a quote 133 Viktor Frankl's experiment on quote 134. The right to choose one's attitude to any circumstances is also important here. Frankl proved that between stimulus and response, there is a gap in which our freedom lies. Marcus expanded this gap to the size of the universe. His prefrontal cortex completely controls the limbic system, creating what neurobiologists call top-down inhibition. This is the biological basis of true power. 4. Stage. Strategic protocol. The master key. A master does not enter a fight not because he fears defeat, but because a fight for him is an acknowledgement of equality with the opponent. True self-control makes you unreachable, Control principle number 7. The law of absolute presence. Synthesize all skills. Breathe steadily. Analyze the opponent's physiology. Use pauses. Accept the inevitable. Remember, any emotion of yours is a gift to the enemy. Do not give gifts. Become a constant for those around you, as unchanging and objective as the laws of physics. When people understand that their shouts, threats, and manipulations do not cause even a shadow of hesitation in you, they will cease to be enemies. They will become your instruments. 5. Stage. Atmosphere of statics. Marcus walks down an empty corridor. His steps sound clear and confident. Outside the window, the sun is setting, painting the city in cold tones. In his head, there is absolute silence. No plans, no anxiety. Only the crystal clarity of the moment. The mechanics of self-control are complete. The machine is working perfectly. The cycle is complete. We have deconstructed the human being into components, studied the chemistry of their anger and the physics of their fear, in order to assemble from these details something more perfect, the architect of their own will. True self-control is not a frozen mask nor a suppressed storm. It is a deep, almost mystical understanding that no external event has power over you until you endow it with meaning. You are the sole legislator in the state of your mind. When you master this mechanics, the world around you changes. You begin to see not enemies, but biological algorithms, not crises, but interesting tasks in resource allocation. Your calmness becomes that very silence in which empires are born and conspiracies crumble. Remember, where others react, you analyze. Where others shout, you maintain a pause. Where others fight for control, you yourself become the control. Statics is not the absence of movement. It is the ideal balance of all forces. Be that balance. Become the point of rest at the center of the rotating chaos. And then victory without a battle will cease to be a strategy. It will become your new reality. He who understands the mechanisms of the psyche gains true freedom.